Dear listeners, once again a big shout out to Travis Davis aka Malicious Logic 37 for this amazing story. Now let's start with the story. My name is Alfonso Conan Simmons, but I usually go by Al. I'm biracial, part African American and part Italian-Irish from my mom's side. I'm 5 feet 9 inches with a lean muscular build. As I sit in my cell, I hear the blizzard outside, which is not out of the ordinary. You have nothing but time in prison, and I have already been here for years. At 3 a.m., most people including convicts are asleep, but I'm not like most people. I hear the violent howl of the wind and can't help but compare it to these past 7 years. The unpredictability and chaos of the snow, its cruel harshness as it rips at your face and skin, and its bitter cold. But when the moonlight hits it right and the sky is clear, it can still somehow have its beauty. Yeah, I'd say that about cover it. That is my life for the past 7 years. Chaos yet accompanied by beauty somehow. Yet here I am, a decorated war hero who saved God knows how many lives, who happens to be a murderer, who lived in this cell for 7 years. My tears fall as I sit on my bed, still clothed mind you. My blue jeans and button-up shirt has been on all day. I couldn't sleep. I just look at the papers in my cell, as well as the pictures of my family. My family, God do I miss them. I wish I could see them. Then I saw her picture. That smile is so enchanting. I see her sitting on the porch of the house in her dress, looking at me with those diamond-like eyes. We made love right after I took it. I brushed my hand across her face, then leaned to kiss it with no shame. And here I am crying, sitting on my bed. Back to what brought me here at this moment, that moment from so long ago. As I let the last tear fall, I hear the block door open. From what I can tell, 2 people are coming down the block to the sound of 2 pairs of feet hitting the ground. Most people would be surprised when you have nothing but time. I saw the guard stop at my cell and take a look inside. I see the CO Stevens and Mac the priest with him. Al, it's time. Think back, I tell myself, smiling at the CO, thinking back to her. A smile forms on my face as my memories play in my mind like a movie in the theater. I was born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, say what you want, but I loved it there. It wasn't as crazy and insane as bigger cities, but you still had so much to do, and the people were decent. Not saints, mind you, but decent. I grew up on 7th St. My mom, Laura O'Malley, was a police officer, and my father, Malcolm Simmons, was a lineman for a state power department when they met. However, he served in the United States Marine Corps. They met by accident, at the scene of a car accident, if you want to believe that. A drunk driver crashed into the power line. Fortunately for him, and everybody else, there were no fatalities. Mom was the first on scene and Dad was in the crew that repaired the site. Dad uses to always say, I'm the only guy that can actually say, sparks flew when I meet your mother. God has a sense of humor. They had a connection from the first time they met and ended up exchanging numbers. They had dated for a year when something happened. Mom was a part of a task force that took down a car thief ring. One night while on patrol, she was ambushed. The gunmen who did it were tracked down to Philly and were killed in a shootout with police. She barely made it by the time the doctors saved her. When Dad arrived, he ran to her room as if he were in a race. He was allowed to see her, and she was covered with tubes and bandages. He cried over her, begging him not to leave her. It was at that moment she opened her eyes. My father wasn't that big on religion, but at that moment he cried and thanked God in every way he could think of. The doctor soon arrived to inform my parents of the damage done, and that was when the doctor dropped a bombshell. Ms. O'Malley, the bullets, although did some damage, it did not penetrate anything vital. And it was by the grace of God that although your blood type is rare, we had some on standby. You lost a lot of blood, but with the transfusion we were able to save both you and the baby. And now that the baby is out of danger, he should be healthy from here on out. Both my parents' jaws may as well hit the floor. Excuse me, Doc, did you say the baby? My mother could barely say the words, not just from the gunshots, but the sheer shock. Yes, 1 month in fact. They broke down in tears of not just for Mom almost dying, but almost losing me as well. 2 things happened that night. My mom ended her 5-year career in the force, and my father proposed to her right then and there. She said yes and got married the next month. And months later, I was born. My mom and Dad agreed on the name of Alfonso, from her grandfather who served in World War II. But Dad gave me the nickname Conan, because as he put it, he was forged in battle when he survived that ambush with you. He would tell my mother. Although she seemed irritated, she always somehow laughed about it and let it stick. That was the thing about my parent. They experienced a lot of dark things in their life, but no matter how dark, humor helped them out of it and made them stronger in a sense. That was something I would always cherish and value. My childhood was impressive. When mom retired, she became a stay-at-home mom. And being the fact that she didn't have to get shot at and see her husband crying over her riddled body, she could live with that. Dad ended up being a foreman for the state and started ranking in some dough. I was raised to never be seen better than anyone, but to always stand up for myself and others. Got into my fair share of fights because of that. Apparently bullies tend not to like it when you refuse to do what they say. They liked it less when I ended up breaking their nose a few times as a result. My parents didn't like it when I fought, but if it was warranted, they were proud of me defending myself. I was mesmerized hearing stories from my parent and how they helped people, how they run into danger to get the bad guys and save the day. That's how I saw it as a kid anyway. Things change when you are older, but I'll get to that later. I loved my parents so much, and they loved and cared for me as any parent should. My father just finished helping me with my tie for graduation. He and my mother were so proud of me. Mom could barely hold back her tears as her little man was graduating high school, and my dad was proud of the fact I was going into the Marines following his footsteps. After boot camp, I was sent to Afghanistan. My first experience of combat was terrifying. They prepare you for war, but not the emotions you feel. My fear fought with my adrenaline. I was terrified, but I knew that if I did not kill the enemy would kill me and my squad. Images of my friends' parent crying over their flag-draped coffins flooded my mind. Then images of my parent crying over mine. No, I told myself, we are coming home. The first guy I shot just slumped over when the bullet entered his head. It's not like the movies when the guys sprawl out in an exaggerated way. He just slumps as his body no longer has any functional capabilities. Off button, we called it. Another enemy died at my knife to take the enemy group off guard while I gained higher ground without drawing fire. I thought he would scream, but it was a stab in the lungs. He didn't yell or scream. He just let out the air in his lungs as he died on my knife. I will never forget the look of his eyes as he died. It was as if they were asking me, why? I could not think about how he was feeling. I couldn't think about if he were someone's husband, father, son, brother, lover. I couldn't think about my enemy as a human. As cold as it sounds, but I couldn't. Emotions were a distraction for me, and in this world that was something I could afford. When I came home the first time on leave, I was 20 and quite different to when I last saw. My parents were thankful to see me, but they saw the change. My dad talked to me first as I told him everything, and then mom came. They knew what it was like to kill someone and how it changes you. They themselves knew what it was like to see the horrors of what humanity does to each other. Mom once saw an infant baby lifeless in his crib. The drug-addicted mother did it to prevent the father from getting full custody. Dad lost a friend in Desert Storm. His friend was going to burn alive in a stairway when some guy got on top of it from jumping on the side of it while he was hidden. He was about to throw a Molotov cocktail. So, he shot the attacker with an M60 machine gun in his face. The attacker didn't have much of a face or any upper body after that. He was the first person that Dad ever took out. Both my parents understood all too well. My parents saved my life because I didn't have to hold it in like they did. We cried, I screamed, I cursed, but because of them I could finally let it out, and I will be forever grateful because of that. As the years and deployments gone by, I learned to hold my reserve, not just for my unit but for me. I built a bond with people in combat that I would never have imagined. We were there for each other, every battle, every mission. We even somehow found humor in the horror of it all. We came from diverse backgrounds and worlds, yet here we are, us happy few if you would. We had a purpose, we drove, we had each other. It was then that I decided to make this a career. When I came home, I informed my parent the news. They were happy for me. We are proud of you, son. My father told me. I'm only here because of you and mom. You're here because of a quickie in the bathroom, actually. Mom blushed at that. Jesus, Malcolm. Mom slapped Dad's shoulder. Then Dad said, at her request, mind you. Mom was red from embarrassment. For God's sakes, Malcolm. I don't think our son needs to learn that much in detail. Dad laughed and brought Mom close to her and kissed her passionately. He then looked into her eyes. You are the most beautiful woman in the world and gave me the greatest gift a bum like me could ask for. Mom smiled and lightly brushed his face while he held her. You lug, I don't fall in love with bums. She then kissed her back. You know I could leave you both for a few hours if you want? Mom then threw a couch pillow at me. Yeah, whatever, you little jerk. Just like your dad, I swear. We all laughed and Dad told us we were going to dinner, so he could share some news. We ended up at a family restaurant called the Silver Spoon. It has a solid reputation with amazing food and service to match. When we were at our table, Dad made sure the area was to ourselves. Al, your mother and I have something to tell you. I noticed they were practically glowing at this point. their smiles evident. Okay, don't leave me in suspense already. What is it? Dad then pulled out a slip of paper. What is this? My son, this is the winning ticket for the $4 million lottery numbers. I was in shock. Did I hear that right? Mom smiled. Yes, you did. Your father hates lottery tickets, so for whatever reason he decided to buy one at Tucky Hill gas station. You should have seen him. His age, and he dosed the moonwalk to celebrate. Dad looked at Mom. Do not hate on my skills, woman. I can't help it if I'm gifted. We laughed at Dad's joke. He then looked back at me and spoke. Son, this changes things. We want you to know that we are proud of you, and whatever you decide, we will support you. We raised you to appreciate these things that life provided you, and not to be caught up or lost in an idea or falsely, but to always be yourself and take pride in that. Treat others with respect as they treat you. You have accomplished so much, Al, and your mother and I are proud of you, and we'll be there for you. We love you, Al. I couldn't help but tear up a little as I hugged them both. We all enjoyed our meal and eventually made our way home. Mom and I drank a bit much, so Dad was the designated driver. We were too far from home or a gas station, so Dad pulled over so I could take a piss. I was a good 7 feet from them. Dad yelled out, 21 years old, and you still can't go to the bathroom before you take a road trip? He laughed as I flipped him the bird. Most people would see that as disrespectful, but that was just me and Dad's humor. Mom was about to say something when a pickup truck called with them head-on. The force was so powerful, it obliterated the entire front of the car. It missed me by mere inches. I was in shock at first and went to my parents. My dad was chorused from the waist up, his eyes looking into nothing. My mother was somehow still breathing when I reached her. Mom, I'm going to get help. Just hold on. I frantically called 911 and told the operator what happened and where we were. I kept the line open and went back to my mom. Despite everything that happened, she had a smile on her face. She was sad, of course, losing Dad, but she knew she would be with him soon. Mom, don't worry, an ambulance is coming. Mom, just hang on, okay? She looked at me with her loving eyes. She had something in her hand. She barely placed it on mine and closed my fist around it. You made us so proud, baby. Love you so much. Mom stays with me, okay? I hear them coming at will. She just smiles at me. Take care, or yourself. My little Conan. She died right there in front of me. After I was done, distraught that I had just lost both my parents in front of me, I noticed the chain in my hand my mother left me. It was the pendant of St. Michael. Cops in the old days would wear it for protection against evil, as they were the peacekeepers. Grandpa gave it to Mom when she was little. Now it's mine. I cry looking at my parents, as they are being put in bags. It was strange. It almost looked like they were asleep. Despite the blood and crushed bodies, of course. The guy who crashed into them had a blood alcohol level 5 times the legal limit. He was in another body bag near my parents. I wanted to spit on his corpse, but that wouldn't change anything. After the funeral, everyone offered their condolences. A lawyer came to me, told me I'm a millionaire now due to the lottery winnings and Mom and Dad's trust fund. Most people would be ecstatic at that news. Meanwhile, I'm heartbroken because my heroes are dead. It didn't matter how much money I had. My family wasn't here to share it with me. I went through the paperwork with the lawyers. I also still had 1 more year before my military contract would be renewed. Millionaire or not, Uncle Sam wants his due. The military gave me a rare extended leave to cope with my loss. I was leaving the pub when I bumped into her. The woman was beautiful despite being in the rain. Her blonde hair and blue eyes shined in the rain. She was like an angel, with the voice and soul to match. No, it's fine. I apologize, I should have been paying attention. She spoke again. No worries, it's only rain. I'm Valerie Jenkins. What's your name? Al, it's nice to meet you, Valerie. Something happened, and we just clicked, bumping into each other as if it were fate. Then she spoke, hey, I enjoyed talking to you. Maybe we could get together sometime? At that moment, I needed someone. We met for a date the following week. She told me she was an art consultant. She would appraise artwork from new artists and access their value for clients. It was profitable. I told her I was in the Marines and recently buried my parents. I left the part where I was a millionaire due to my parents' funds. I didn't trust her yet. In time, our time together grew, as did our feelings. I told her that I had 1 more year in my contract, and then I would leave. I loved the military, but the more time I spent with her, the more I didn't want her to leave. It was like she was sent my way to take away the pain and the darkness in my life. There was nothing I wouldn't do for her. We made love every chance we had. My God, she was insatiable. And it wasn't just the sex. It was her. The way she would smile when she saw me. The way she would comfort me when thought of my parents filled my head, reminding me how much they loved me and were proud of me. And her personality was amazing. She could light up a room with her smile and have it under her spell with her wit and beautiful and kind soul. She came into my life when I suffered the most, the longest in the dark. When I told her this was my last tour, she was ecstatic. We were together for a year at this point, and it was at that point I told her of my real funds, how my parents left me a fortune when they died. However, she merely kissed me. Al, I don't care about your money, only you. I love you, Al Simeons. I want to build a family with you, a life with you. I just want you, Al, just you. I proposed right there on the spot, where we met so long ago. We had a small wedding at the courthouse. Prior to that, she signed on the prenup. I was pleasantly shocked at her insistence. I knew I meet the right woman. We went to Hawaii for the week, before I had to go back on tour. And we made love whenever we could. In our room, on the beach, everywhere. And every time it felt like I was in heaven, waking up next to such a beautiful woman. We spent our honeymoon in Jamaica. From the moment we stepped into the room, we made love. I took her in ways one would see in a romance novel to a sleazy adult video the next. It was worth it because it was with her. This angle that somehow bumped into my life. Felt like the most blessed man in the world. When our honeymoon ended, we went home. The house we purchased was in my joy, not too far from Lancaster. A beautiful 2-story home with a big enough backyard to provide us privacy. I kissed my loving wife goodbye when it was time for me to leave. I told her I would video chat with her whenever I could and write to her any chance I get. As the months went by, I noticed a change in her attitude. We used to talk every Thursday and Friday, but she started missing days, and I'd wait for her the following week. And the time I talked to her, she became distant. We used to love talking to each other, talking about our days and how much we missed each other. What we are going to do when I finally come home. Now she seemed distracted, as if I'm interrupting something. We went from talking to our allowed half hour to barely 7 minutes. I brought it up one day. Valerie, what is with you? You seem more distant than you used to. It's like I'm talking to someone who isn't complete here. Al, baby, don't be crazy. It's just busy on this end is all. Work has been rough, and clients are a bit pickier for some reason. Nothing is wrong. Okay? Her words said one thing, but her tune said something else. But what could I really do? I was across the world fighting God knows whatever evils, and she was there. I realized that if I'm here, I must focus on that fact for now. So, there was only the mission. I told her I had only 4 months to go and said I love her. All right, honey, be safe. She didn't say it back. Our next mission was coming up soon. I didn't realize it at the time, but this would not only be my last mission, but my last year in the Marines. There are many hidden wars that the public doesn't know about. This one was in a village of Korangal Valley of Afghanistan, considered one of the most dangerous areas for a U.S. Marine to be in, which may have been another day for us. Rebels were being used as muscle for drug cartels who took advantage of their heroin fields. Their base of operations were villages encamped around the area. They decided to break off from working for the cartels and do their own organizations. They were drug-fueled and violent, using religion to indulge and encourage or force others to do so. This religious extremist group with a knack for guns was causing a ruckus in the area. An entire unit was captured or killed after a failed assault due to false information. An asset for the CIA was trapped inside the area. So, they had a convoy enter the area as a distraction for the enemy to get their asset out. The issue is the Korangal Valley is the meat grinder death trap of this area of the world. Many a Marine fought and died here. Coming here via convoy would be suicide to most Marines, but when you get a bunch of fresh boots who don't know anything but to follow orders without questions, you get your mission. They got their asset out, but not without the cost of the entire convoy. The boots didn't know what hit them, which was fine for the higher-ups because they were expendable. When we heard about it, we were told to stand down by some suit from D.C. He said that due to lack of resources and the chance of absolute failure to not intervene. We knew the enemy. They were known to only take prisoners for a day or two, then leave their bodies scattered and brutalized as an insult to their enemies and their families. It would take a week for reinforcements to arrive. The things about private wars are that they are expensive, and as a result a soldier's life is forfeit. And disobeying a direct order is an effective way to end up dead or in Leavenworth. I heard it and didn't care and went out anyway. I went out with a few brothers. The rest had to stay to show face. Can't have the entire unit committing career suicide. When we arrived at it appeared they were using a military base from the Cold War era. We saw the prisoners with most of the enemy patrolling, armed, but complacent. I used that. I knew the key was the central hub, which had the electrical power for the alarms, so that's where I went. I saw the prisoners in the eastern area of the camp, yet for some reason most of the soldiers were in the north. We split our teams. I went for the prisoners while the others went to the north. I looked through the night vision scope and saw that a group was taking a single prisoner into a house nearby. When I saw that only one guard was left, I shot him dead when the door to the house closed. Squad and I were on scene in moments. I approached the house. Inside, a group of solders were attempting to assault a female soldier. One was trying to use his knife to cut off her belt while another held her down, only for her to headbutt him from behind and grab the knife with her free hand, cutting the would-be assaulter's throat. Then one man pulled out his pistol and screamed, "The hell with her. We will just screw her body." I shot him and the rest before anyone could pull the trigger. I identified myself and helped her gather herself. Time was not an ally, so we had to move fast and armed her with the enemy's weapon. We caught up with the others and made our way to the second team. The prisoners were now our backup as we gathered the weapons from the dead enemy soldiers. When both teams met, it turns out that this army wasn't just in the drug business, but also into human trafficking, bioweaponry. They decided to dabble in more than one operation. We found this out when we went to their control center part of the base. The files and information we discovered were a goldmine. We took everything we could, but left enough explosives to level the place, leaving nothing but their dead bodies behind. As we were moving out, one of the enemy guards spotted one of the prisoners. I shot him before he could raise an alarm, but in doing so I gave away our position. The battle was bloody, yet we somehow fought through it without casualties. Suddenly there was an expulsion that caught me off guard. The blast, although painful, didn't damage me, but the shrapnel in my left eye was another story. More enemy soldiers were arriving. I was in pain, but failure only meant death. I had seen an anti-tank missile cases in the control room, so I made my way back, while ordering my unit to keep the enemy at bay. I was familiar with the system and aimed it at enemy vehicles. Once armed, I activated it and used the enemy's missiles against them. Well, technically it was our product, but I don't want to get into that. Once clear from the base, I activated the explosives we left there, destroying the camp completely. When it was all said and done, we rescued 50 POWs, retrieved information criminal organizations throughout the world, including locations and shipment of human trafficking, and the location of a bioweapon that was being devolved. Thousands of people snatched from their loved ones were reunited with their families from all over the world. A bio-attack was prevented. We saved the world, all without suffering a single casualty, except for my eye, of course. My commanding officer wanted to court-martial me, but instead, due to the success and findings of the mission, I was granted a Purple Heart, a Silver Star, and the Medal of Honor. The president could not give me the medal personally, but he was there via video chat and ordered that the same suit that told me and my unit to stand down present me the medal. I can't lie, a slight smile showed a bit of itself as I watched how pissed off and embarrassed he was as he bitterly gave me my medal. My commanding officer could not lock me up for disobeying a direct order, but he could kill my career. And so, he did. Effective immediately, I was honorably discharged. And just like that, I was sent home. So, I sat there looking down at the illuminated lights of Philadelphia below. The plane ride was comfortable. I was supposed to come home another 2 months, but recent events changed that. I can't help but feel a sense of loss though. I'm happy to finally come home to the love of my life. Yet I feel like I lost something. The camaraderie I shared with those I fought alongside with. The enjoyable time and the memories that I shared with friends, brothers, and sisters. We fought dangerous foes and laughed in the battle like crazed maniac, just to laugh about it later. We saved the world. And now it's just over. I think about the last scene from Rambo, when he is telling his commander back in battle, he uses to operate million-dollar equipment and tanks. And now he can't get a job parking a car. The thought stuck with me. What am I going to do? All I know is to be a soldier. Maybe I can be a mechanic somewhere. I fixed enough Humvees, trucks, and wreckers to last a lifetime. I had this conversation and others as I made my way to the Amtrak station after leaving the airport. I should be in Lancaster in 4 hours. Valerie should be at work by then. That is fine, I could use the time to decompress. I thought to myself. I look out the window at the familiar landscapes I haven't seen in a year. Lancaster eventually come into view. Despite my sense of loss, I can't help but feel excited. When I finally come home, I walk into the parking lot of the train station. She is still there. My 1970 Dodge Challenger, aka Kowalski. I call the car that is from the main character from the movie Vanishing Point. Me and Dad used to watch it all the time. When I got the inheritance from my folks, I bought the car and had it revived, even the engine. I could ride it coast to coast and it would be fine. A road bully. Dad would have loved it. I made my way home, exhausted. I had a vase with her favorite flower, tiger lilies, in case she called in sick or something. When I arrived home, I saw a car I had never seen before. If it were a new car, that was fine, but this was a F-150 Ford pickup truck, something Valerie would not be caught dead in, let alone drive. I then saw Valerie's car next to it as I got closer. A weird feeling began to build in my guts. I opened the door, and that's when I saw it. 2 glasses of wine on the table, a pair of shoes I don't own, and my wife's bra on the sofa arm. As I move closer to the staircase, I hear the unmistakable sound of my wife's moans when she is making love. Out of all the scars I endured in battle, all the physical pain I felt on the field, nothing broke or hurt me as I heard my wife moan another man's name. Oh my God, Sean. Yes, keep going. Oh, Sean. After everything I've been through, nothing hurt me more than that. Because that voice was meant only for me, and me alone. But now another man is embracing it instead of me. I crumble at the foot of the stairs as I hear them. Grunts, moans, and scream fill the air as my heart broke and tears began to fall. After what seems like an eternity, I gather myself up and make my way upstairs. The sounds get louder when I hear them. I eventually heard the vulgarity of their session. Oh God, you are so much better than my husband. That loser doesn't know how to please a woman, baby. Allow me to demonstrate. It was like I was walking in a dream. I opened the door, startling both. My wife has a look of shock, while the man, who I don't know, is on top of her, giving me a look. A look that almost seems like it mocking me. That had happened. I pulled out my 9mm Beretta and shot Valerie right in the heart. His smirk and the mocking look left his face and was now replaced by shock and horror. The man jumped out of bed with his hand up. Hey man, don't shoot. I didn't know she was with you. You got to listen. I did not need reasons and excuses. I shot him in the gut. His screams echo in the room. A look of fear and desperation appeared in his eyes. Then he spoke again. Please, oh God, don't. I raised the pistol and kept pulling the trigger until I realized I was out of ammo. By the time I was finished, his chest looked Swiss cheese. Suddenly, I woke up from the nightmare and saw the carnage that I had created. I walked to my wife, her body now lying on the bed, and held her in my arms as my tears ran. Why did you do this to me? To us? Why, Valerie, why? And I just held, crying. After a while, I realized what my actions meant and what would be the results. I could not be here anymore. I had to leave. If I didn't, I would spend the rest of my life in prison. It would not matter if I was a war hero. They would only see me as some crazy PTSD-driven vet who killed his wife in a fit of rage, nothing more. I lived here all my life, found love, and now I must leave it all behind. When Dad won the lottery, he followed Mom's advice to have a vault in their house. They never wanted to put the money in the bank. It would be in a hidden compartment, and the vault itself was so airtight that it could keep the money fresh for decades if not longer. Not to mention fires, or even water could reach the content of it. They had it installed as soon as they cashed the ticket and put their money prior to letting me know about it. In fact, Mom made sure I got the card with the information when she gave it to me at dinner that night. The password to access it was Conan, and in the event something happened to them, she wanted to make sure that I could disappear if I had to, although I don't think that anyone expected this to be the reason. At this point, I still had at least $3 million to disappear with. I made a call with a burner phone to the police and told them that shots were fired, then destroyed the phone. Despite what she did to me, I didn't like the idea of her body just being left there to rot. Then, I drove my car with bags of money in the trunk and made my way out west. I didn't know where exactly I would end up, but it would not be here, not anymore. I contacted a friend of mine who was known as a guy to go to if you wanted to disappear. We met in Afghanistan in an operation. Long story short, I saved his life, and we have been best friends since. Last I heard, he said he settled into something new and got a new car. Sports car with some space that he loves. That was the letter he sent, but what he said was different. He got work with a shady outfit and recently became its number 2. He also got married to a woman with a kid recently whom he loves very much. And he thanked me for making it happen. If I ever needed help, I knew where to find him. And I did. He talked about the place all the time when he was with me over there. I arrived at the building around 3 in the morning. The place was completely covered in forest. Simon has always been fit. Today was no exception. He was now 28, and yet he was among the most powerful criminals in the country, yet most people would have no idea. Hey brother, long time no see. Glad you remember how I taught you to eat breadcrumbs. I hugged that man for all it's worth. Good to see you too, brother. Although I wish it were better circumstances. Simon raised an eyebrow. Talk to me, man. What going on? I told him everything up to now. about the last mission and its impact, about, in essence, getting kicked out of the Marines with a good report card, and then finding Valerie. Simon always had a keen sense of people. Gift or curse, he could just do it. He could tell if someone would be your most loyal friend, or your most ruthless enemy, or completely useless. It's not a shock being who he is. But when he spoke to me about Valerie, I'm sad to say I didn't listen to him. I ignored every warning because I wanted the beautiful lie and not the ugly truth. You were right, man. You were right about her. I just didn't want to believe it. I'm sorry, man. Simon took his hand and tapped my shoulder. What are you sorry about? Falling in love? Congratulations. You were human. It's a lesson learned, brother. That's all. I looked at my big brother. Simon, I know what you said. You offered your help, but I don't want you to. Stop right there. I'm standing here talking to you because of you. I have a beautiful wife and daughter who love me as I love them that I can go home to because of you. You asked for my help. Don't think that this is some bullshit. You scratch my back, I scratch your. I didn't imagine you for the settling down type man. You with a wedding band? Simon laughed. Yeah, it was bound to happen eventually. Still, I wouldn't change a thing. Simon gave a light smile as he rubbed his wedding band. He told me about his new wife Shannon and her child Alice. How they showed him a love he didn't think possible or deserved. I congratulated my brother. Simon then stood up as he finished his beer. Okay, time to make you disappear, my good sir. And we walked to the cube like building in the distance. Watching Simon was like watching a magician at work. He hacked into the DMV records as if he worked there, which honestly would not surprise me. I used to call him Sponge, because he just soaked up in all the information he could. He even hacked Social Security services and gave me a new Social Security number. For most people, to do something at this caliber it would take weeks. For Simon it took a matter of minutes. Then he gave me passports, driver's license, and a Social Security card. Hello, Jason Wynn. It's nice to meet you. A Cheshire cat-like grin spread on his face. I couldn't help but smile. He then took me by the shoulder. For what it's worth, I'm sorry for what happened. And I wish you well, brother. I'm also going to do some digging on the guy you plugged in. Something about this seems off to me. I have been so busy with work, Shannon, and Alice, I haven't been looking at your side for a while. I'll let you know what I find. Suddenly Simon's phone rang. I sat back looking at the serious expression of my friend. Al, my contact in Lancaster has found a phone in your bedroom. He's going to send it my way, and we are going to see what else was on there beside the sex. There is something that we have yet to find. Wait, there was a cell phone? Al, the police would find out it was you eventually. This will at least give you a way out. Simon pointed to the new identification he made for me. Simon then embraced me in a hug and spoke. You are my brother, you understand? Not just of the core, but in general. I love you, man. My daughter has her father, and my wife has her husband still here because of you. Don't ever forget that. At that point I wished my friend well, and left my hometown for the last time. I drove west, not really knowing where to go at this point. With a few million in my trunk, it wasn't that hard. Glad Simon gave me a few personal items too. He gave me 50 grand. I still remember arguing to him about that until he threatens to kick my butt if I didn't take the money. I laughed when I told him I like to dream too, and he added in the laughter. I ended up taking the money anyway. There was no way of knowing how long I could last of the grid, which would have to be my life from here on out. I also looked at the hardware he got me. One AR-15, a pistol grip Mossberg shotgun, and a .45 caliber ACP pistol, with the ammo to last. I stay away from the cities. Too many unwanted chances I could do without. I make it a point to let my beard grow out with throw off as much attention. I have been shaving baby face, shaved since I had the first speck of hair on my face. After a few months on the road, I got a decent sized beard at this point. The men on both sides of my family have a strange issue with growing beards fast. Right now the last thing I'm going to do is complain. Although I have literal millions on me, I need to keep a low profile. I take the role of drifter, looking for odd jobs to get by. Maybe work at a factory here or there. Help with warehouse equipment. I usually stayed at affordable hotels. Not cheap, mind you. There is a difference. One day I'm sitting in a diner somewhere in Indiana. A new bulletin has come on. I see my picture on the screen. They talk about how I killed my wife and her lover in bed. An FBI agent then speaks in front of the camera. I'm Special Agent Alex Murphy. The FBI is now taking over this case. It has been 4 months since this happened, and we have the full intention to bring Mr. Simmons into custody to face justice. Mr. Simmons is wanted for the double homicide of his wife Valerie Simmons and an individual named Franklin Jefferson. Both victims were shot in bed. We believe Mr. Simmons is responsible for this double homicide. Mr. Simmons is a biracial male with a muscular and lean build. He has also fought as a United States Marine and a decorated war hero, including the Medal of Honor. For this reason, he is armed and dangerous. We ask that if anyone sees him, do not approach or try to apprehend him yourself. Call your local law enforcement or your nearest FBI offices. The reporter then addresses the agent when he was about to leave. Special Agent Murphy? Is there something you would like to say to the man in question? The agent did not hesitate the response. Do everyone a favor and turn yourself in, Mr. Simmons. With that, the agent walked away the shouts and cameras. It was time to leave, bread or not. I left a decent tip for my meal, then I was on my way before anyone recognized me. I don't know how long I have been up. 8, 11, 24 hours. I just know I was exhausted. I was driving for so long. I didn't notice the embankment coming up until the moment I crashed into it. And then darkness. When I woke up, I found myself in a modest bedroom, in an amazingly comfortable bed. My ribs were bandaged up when I brushed them due to the pain. I was also bathed somehow but didn't recall taking a shower. And as I thought about it, where are my clothes? And where am I? The door suddenly opened, and in came an old woman, in her late 40s, early 50s. She was attractive and well-built for her age. Her raven-colored hair with very few grays, slightly covering her eyes, as she had the rest to it in a ponytail. And her face was beautiful and seemed like it aged like fine wine. She was a tiny thing at only 5'1", but there was something soothing and welcoming about her smile. Like everything was going to be a light. It reminded me of how Mom looked at me when I was a kid. I see our guest is finally awake. How are you feeling, dear? I was stunned for a moment. Not every day you wake up in a random stranger's bed. Ma'am, where am I? The woman gave a slight smile before answering. Well, to help you out, you are in our home, slap dab in the middle of Benton County, Indiana. Also, we have a population of less than 9,000. So, I doubt whoever you're running from is going to bother you here. My hair gave out a lot. All my things are gone. My clothes, my car, me. Before you ask, your car is being worked on by my husband in the garage. It took some damage but should be good as new in time. Certain rewards of having your own fonder and scrap metal. We also found your money in the trunk. The woman put a bag down with my clothes cleaned in it, then reached behind the door frame and pulled out a double-barrel shotgun aiming it at me. Now, sir, I ask that you not take offense to my actions. My husband found you and your car by chance when he was hunting. He brought both of us home. I patched you up. You have been asleep for over a week. If not for our help, you would not have made it. Not every day you find a young man with a few million in a bag of his car. So, you are going to put your clothes on and meet me and my husband downstairs for lunch, and we are going to have a conversation about what brought you here, and hopefully what may be following you. I assume that will not be an issue? The woman's warm smile never faded, which slightly disturbed me, because the way she held that gun, and the confidence and control she had behind it, told me she had done this before, and used the weapons as well. I looked at her, with no hint of animosity. I got the impression she would have no issue with painting my insides on her bedsheets. It wouldn't be the first time. No, ma'am, which will not be an issue. When I got dressed, I slightly strained from the pain in my ribs. I also saw that the bandage around my head was slightly tender still. I came downstairs to see the same woman call me over to the dining room table. I also saw an old, but sturdy tall man who was about 6'1" was sitting next to her. He had a hard look that told him he had seen violence, and his body, although old, was very fit and muscular, and still looked like it could do some damage to the poor soul that crossed him or his wife. Like me, he also had a beard, but the wife and the old man seemed off, as if something you don't see in civilian. I could tell by their mannerism that they were either military or something else. I went for the latter. Nice to meet you, Mr. Wynn, or do you prefer Simmons? A brow went up my head, trying to figure out how they knew who I was. Before you ask, the name was on your dog tag, son. We are anything but a secret government agency that you see in movies. I felt like an idiot for that mistake. The woman gave a chuckle at that. But I do have to ask. The man then mentioned the duffel bag of money. You mind explain why I found this on you? The man then revealed a .357 Magnum and pointed it at me. Now it would be a different greeting if you didn't have these contents in your possession when I found you in that embankment. But I did. So, I'm going to need you to tell me why and how exactly you ended up here. And I promise you, if I even get a hint that you are lying. The man cocked the hammer. The last thing you will see is the flash of this beautiful weapon, as the bullet obliterates your skull, as if it were a grapefruit in batting practice. With that, I figured there was no choice. So, I told them everything. My parents dying, and the winning lottery ticket. My last mission with the Marines. Then finding my wife with another man in bed. Told how I'd been on the road for months. When it was over, I just felt a form of acceptance. Look, I get it. You guys clearly are not cops, but now civilians either. Do what you must do. Just make sure that you sell the car, or at least give it away. It's all I have left of the old man, and he would be heartbroken if the car just got scraped for parts. The couple looked at each other for a moment, then laughed as if they heard a joke. Holy hell, kid. Your generations take being dramatic to a whole new level, I tell you. The man stated before he and his wife laughed again. After the laughter, he spoke up. The name's Vincent Galloway. This is my wife, Bridget. We've been here for a while, as you can tell. He tossed the bag to me. It's all there, but we have a counter if you want to verify it. Your car is fixed up too. The engine was a little too banged up, but I fixed it and gave it a boost. You could win that thing in any race if you wanted. Also, being that you yourself are a little banged up, figure to ask you if you wanted to stay a bit until you were healed up. I was shocked. These people, who just had their guns at me at one point, still helped and aided me with care, are now giving my stuff back and letting me stay to heal? From the look of your face, you seem confused on why we didn't kill you and take your stuff. Not going to lie, that did cross my mind, yes. The man laughed. Well, let's just say, we have more in common than you think. That and I got a good vibe about you. Now I do promise to tell you the reason we like you one day. But for now, just rest up. As the month went by, I built a friendship and a bond with this new family of mine. It turns out that Vincent was a part of an elite mercenary unit known as the Zombies. The purpose was to kill the enemy before anyone knew they were even there, and at the same time, left no traces on who did the job. They did jobs ranging from protection and escorts to rescues and destruction of a targeted organization. Their clients were governments, criminal organizations, or even private citizens if the money was good. They had rules, though. They did not do jobs that involved harming innocents or civilians. One day they were given a job to work for a criminal organization to protect a shipment. It turned out the shipment was human, women and children involved in the sex trade to be more specific. Sickened by this, the unit not only freed the poor souls, allowing them to return to their families after being away from them so long. Not only that, but found information in files, laptops, and thumb drives, which located the organization's entire network of human traffic victims and gave it to the authorities, crippling their very profitable pockets of that organization. Many of its members were locked up by authorities from around the world, but those who avoided capture wanted revenge. One by one, they brutally executed not just members of the unit, but their families as well, including women and children. Vinny grimaced at the memories. He played as a clown for some of those kids' birthday parties. He was horrified at seeing death and the carnage. Some of them were killed in their own beds. Most of the guys were killed off, but Vincent wasn't most guys. He survived his assassination attempt, but by the time he could get a hold of anyone, they were all dead, his entire unit and their families. For the next 48 hours, he would extract brutal revenge on the entire organization. Vincent was a highly decorated Navy SEAL. He had more than enough knowledge and skill to eliminate the threat. Amidst the chaos, Vincent met Bridget, a young woman who was forced into the sex trade by the organization not even 24 hours ago. She was an orphan who had just graduated high school a few years ago. She was going home to her apartment when they just took her. They assaulted her in the van right then and there before bringing her. She was short with long blonde hair, 20 years old, and had a beautiful face and figure. She was being assaulted when Vincent found her. He then killed the men who were abusing her brutally. After that, he took her by his side and swore to protect her. Ever since then, she always felt safe with him and never left his side. Somehow, they developed a bond and love among the chaos. When it was all over, all his friends and their families were dead, but so were the people responsible. In fact, over 150 men who were once part of the feared organization were now dead in a matter of days. He and Bridget found the man responsible, a rogue U.S. agent by the name of Arthur Flegenheimer, who used his knowledge and influence to have such a powerful grip in the underworld and underground economy. He would use things such as blackmail and entice criminals from all walks of life to work for him. There was no moral compass for him. He was cold, cruel, and greedy. He would have many working for him, criminal and politicians alike. With all of them dead, there was no one else to help him. Vinny and Bridget tracked him to his penthouse downtown. Vincent and Bridget had killed all his men and bodyguards so he wouldn't be disturbed. The man was held over the railing of his home and begged for his life. In response, Vincent told him if he wanted to live, all he had to do was bring back his friends and their families. Arthur was in tears like a coward, saying it was only business, nothing personal. With that, Vincent smiled at Arthur as Bridget just looked at him. Vincent let him go, allowing the man to fall to his death. They ended up taking all the money in his vault, which was well over $300 million. Vincent remembered the old family farm he had in Indiana. He offered Bridget half of the money and told her she should stay away from someone like him. She responded by slapping him. "You saved me from a life worse than death by being a toy for those shit stains. You saved my life countless times in this nightmare, and now you think you can just toss me aside." She then kissed him in a strong, loving embrace. "Not a chance. I love you, dumb idiot, and I know you feel the same way. And yes, I know it wasn't long since I met you, but I have. And I'm not going anywhere." He smiled at her and kissed her back right then and there. They ended up here and got the place fixed up since it hasn't been used since the 50s. They have their own farm and livestock, so they don't go to town much. And the deed is still in Vinny's name. They have been here ever since. Vinny laughs a little every time he talks about when Bridget slaps him. Bridget just blushes a bit and hits his shoulder. One day, I was helping Vinny in the barn with other cars. Then he spoke up. "Hey Al, me and Bridget have been talking. Why don't you stay with us for a while? Till the heat eases up a bit. I have seen how you love it up here. You practically run to work around the farm with the livestock. This place has a beauty, man. Seen it. What do you say?" I thought about it. "You got a point, Vinny." So, for the remaining year I stayed with Vinny and Bridget. In time, Vinny hired me as co-driver when he needed to pick up a vehicle that needed to be towed or fixed. With my fake ID, and the fact I was gaining more muscle with what I did at the farm and full-grown beard, people weren't going to recognize me much. Bridget could cook her butt off too. Anything you can think of, she could cook it. Not to mention she was extremely funny. It didn't matter how sad or mad you were. One dinner with her and you'll laugh your ills away while having a full stomach. And I could see that they genuinely loved each other. One day Bridget approached me when I was having lunch after working on the farm. "Hey Al, do you have a minute? I want to talk to you about something that's been bothering me for a while now." I looked at her concerned. "Don't worry, Al. If it were an issue like that, we wouldn't be having this conversation now. You not in the principal office, I promise." Despite the ominousness of that prior statement, I eased up a little. "Okay, Bridget, what's on your mind?" Bridget sat across from me. "Your wife, what was her name again, and what did she look like?" I reminded her of her name and looks as I had told her before. Bridget's brows frowned a little, as if she were in deep thought. "I didn't catch or think about it much when you told me. I hate cheaters, so I wasn't too broken up to hear what you did to her. Plus, I don't take you for the cold-blood killer type. You are the type that there must be a reason. But anyway, it is the period that got me." I looked at her confused. "Al, you were her mark, her target. She was going to con and take your money, even have you killed herself. If I remember right, they announced the winners of the state lottery in most states, Pennsylvania being one of them. She saw your family's name in the picture. She would have gone for your dad, but your mom was a police officer, so that got shot down. But then both your parents died, leaving you as the family heir. You said yourself, she just bumped into when your folks died. The bump wasn't an accident. And then after the win, and you guys date not even that long, you marry, but she produces the prenup? That itself is a red flag." I thought about her words for a moment, and they brought an uneasy feeling. Then I remembered that Simon said he had a feeling for her as well. "I need to make a call, Bridget. Is there anywhere I can do that without causing you or Vinny trouble?" Bridget paused and thought a moment. "Actually, yes, we have a landline and cell phones. But those calls you don't want tracked. We got something in hidden bunker less than a mile on the property. I'll tell Vinny. Whoever you call, there is no way they are tracing it back. Not that we did anything to want the police officers to look for us anyway. The people we killed years ago were not exactly going to be missed. In fact, some would say we did the world a favor. But we keep the bunker updated just in case." Bridget and I found Vinny and let him know what we talked about. Then we all made our way to the bunker. If not for Vinny or Bridget, I would never have found it. The entire pathway was hidden, until Vinny pulled a lever. Suddenly fake tress moved from the clearing, and camouflage nets raided from the ground. It still gave a cover in case someone had drones. The bunker itself was impressive as well. We only needed to use the upper level, but from the looks of the depth it went further. The US government used this as a nuclear bomb shelter a while back. It goes down 6 miles. You could survive a nuclear blast down here if you wanted. I keep the elevator functional to pause time. Hope to God we never have to. Vinny then brought us to the phone. It was the same style as those used in combat overseas. I called the first number that came to mind. "Who is this? How did you get this number?" "You have less than." "Simon, it's me." A moment of shock hit Simon as he gathered himself. Al? Where have you been? I haven't heard from you in months." I filled Simon in on where I had been, and with their permission, advised him about Vinny and Bridget and how they have been helping me. I then brought up Valerie. Your friend Bridget is right on the money about Valerie. Or I should say Jessica Saunders. Did some digging on her. She is a well-known grifter. She has been known to swindle guys and women out of fortunes. And those who don't give her the money for whatever reason have something unfortunate happen to them. Many turned up dead because of her. And before the authorities can get her, she is gone. I paused at his words for a moment. The fact that the woman who I loved and killed was a grifter. Al, that's not all. My contact looked at the cell phone on the nightstand. The guy she was with was a lover of hers. Had a thing for video content. She was telling him about setting you up and taking your money. She was going to make it so that you were set up. Get pills in your drink when you come back to celebrate. Then have you wake up with a hooker with plenty of drugs on her and your system. Then while you were in jail, have someone hack your accounts, then have you killed. Leaving everything to her. With the lottery your folks won, and they're in Hartons, she would have everything. After she had you killed. I was in shock. I couldn't speak. I felt Bridget's hand on my shoulder to comfort me. I felt so hurt and heartbroken knowing that the woman I loved did not love me but my money, and the fact that she was willing to soil my name, and then have me killed by someone in prison. I'm sorry, man. I know you loved her, but you coming home earlier than she thought and plugging that greedy scum sucker did the world a favor. I thank Simon and everyone for the information. Simon offered funds and service to Bridget and Vinny if they ever needed anything to help me. And I coped with the face that my wife wanted to have me killed and take my money like a vulture waiting for me to die. I almost felt sick, knowing that I made love to that woman. I still felt some form of loss about her, not guilt due to current information, but loss of what we could have been. However, now it was just that, now. And that was she was dead, and I was alive, and in time I would be okay with that. Life on the farm went on. I grew closer to my new family. I felt a piece of myself filled with something that I thought I had lost long ago. A sense of family and friendship. Simon was the only friend I had contact with, and the ones I have or are alive a few and far between to say the least. And yet, I found these people's friendship and love despite everything that happened. I realized that if it came down to it, I would stand by their side and take on the devil's armies with a smile if it came down to it. Months passed and I understood what it meant to have them as family. They were active for their age as far as displays of affection were concerned. And despite their age, they had no qualms demonstrating it. There have been some nights when they really demonstrate it by the sounds they make in their bedroom. There was even one time when Bridget came from her room one night from one of their sessions. She hummed in a daze while her robe was partially open. I happened to come inside late due to an influx of cars and work around the farm. I took a custom-made shower by the barn due to the excess grease. After I dried off, I put my clothes back on. I could get rid of them when I went to the house shower. I just wanted to make sure I was covered. I was heading upstairs to take another one when I bumped into a voluptuous, partially nude, and surprised Bridget. Her blissful daydream of that night's escapades with Vinny was intercepted by me bumping into her. Oh my God, Al. I'm so sorry. Before I could say anything, she ran back to her of Vinny's room like a terrified and embarrassed teenager rather than a 50-year-old woman. When Vinny was awoken and was told what happened, he could not help but laugh. And I must admit, despite the shock, so did I. Bridget and Vinny became my adopted parents. The stories we told each other and the things we did for each other did nothing but help our bond and love grow. They could never be my parents, but on the other hand, I could still love them like they were. Vinny would start calling me nephew if any one of the few residents in town asked. A lot of times we helped travelers who got stuck in a ditch coming through. One of the amazing things about Vinny was his knowledge. He was a martial artist and trained in many forms of combat his entire life. He knew style like boxing, jiu-jitsu, karate, Russian-style martial arts, and taught me all of it. At first, I was afraid I was going to hurt him, but as the days went on, let's just say it was Bridget's turn to hear me scream. And in no way was it pleasurable. He also trained me in weaponry. It was way beyond what I learned in boot camp. It didn't matter the rifle, pistol, or even blunt instrument. He taught me everything. It was the same skill and knowledge that he used to save himself and Bridget. By the year's end, I was a living weapon. Bridget used to tease me and Vinny and called us Batman and Robin. We laughed at the thought. I teased back. I'm more of a Jason Todd guy the more I think about it. He's more like Frank Castle. One day, I was sitting on the porch of my newfound home. But then it happened. Something told me it was time to leave. I told Bridget and Vinny this, and despite it being sad news, they understood and respected my decision to leave. Vinny brought the car from the barn. It had been worked on and cared for since I've been here. Still looked as good as the day it was made. She will last you if you need her to. Also get your money inside, every cent. With a little extra. Vinny gave me a brick of 100 grand. Do not fight me on this. It was Bridget's idea, and she will kick both of our butts if you don't take it. We all shared a laugh. I gave Vinny a hug, thanking him for everything he had done and taught me. I won't forget what you have done for me, Vinny. Thank you. You just take care of yourself, Al. With a smile, he patted me on the back. When I turned to hug Bridget, she practically jumped into my arms as tears fell from her face. Al, we never had children. Even when me and Vinny met, I could not because of what those a-holes did to me. You have any idea how hard it is for a woman to know that even at 20 she will not be able to have children due to the sexual trauma she endured? Bridget cried harder. Me and Vinny had a few tears that shed ourselves. Thank God Vinny found me when he did. That man has done more for me than he will ever know. She looks at Vinny. I love your beautiful man. Vinny smiles. I love you too, you angel. Bridget looks back at me, still holding me, looking right in my eyes. We didn't have the traditional introduction, I know. But the more that I got to know you, the more I thank God for bringing you into our life. Al, as I said, I never had children. But know that I love you as if you are my own son. We both do. I know your parents are gone. But just know, if there is ever a time that you feel alone, and you need a voice to tell you that everything will be okay, or you ever need to disappear from the world for a while, you come back to us. Do you hear me? You come back home to the people who love you. We all cried as she spoke her words. Then I gave her the best hug I could without hurting her. Vinny joined suit. Bridget continued in mid-sob. You come back and visit us, okay? Promise me you'll come back. I looked into her tear-filled eyes. I promise, Bridget. You have my word. I love you guys too. Thank you both for what you have done for me. With that, I loaded the last of my belongings in the car and turned on the engine. She sounded beautiful, like a beast who has slumbered, finally awakening for the first time in eons. I gave Vinny and Bridget one finale wave before I drove off. Bridget was still crying as Vinny held her. As I drove off the property, I could not help but feel like he gained something that I lost some time ago. I could not put a name on it, but I'm thankful to have it again. As more months passed, I found myself going west, or more so southwest. I would never flaunt my cash, even though I had a lot of it. Now in the action movies I saw as a kid, the protagonist would usually take a job as a bouncer or something. And before you say anything, yes, Roadhouse is a classic. Doing something that brings attention would be the last thing I ever would do. So, I went back to the hotels, but also offered to work at rundown gas stations or mechanical shops with everything Vinny taught me about cars. I even offered help as a farmhand to stay in shape and get the lay of the land. Also practiced my accent. I may not be from the county, but no one needed to know that. I see many things on my travels. I helped a family out of a van caught in a flash flood, but got away before they could see who I was. I helped a police officer get medical aid to him when he was shot by a suspect. The police officer shot and killed the suspect, but not before the suspect got a shot off. I even drove a bus for a bit for the local school district. I never used credit cards. Always accepted pay under the table, and still had a significant amount of money still handy. With my new identity, I was determined not to spend the rest of my life in prison and learned as much as I could about the country. Because the more I thought about it, it was going to be my new permanent home. I did everything I could to keep a low profile. There were occasions when I had to go to one city or another. Omaha, Chicago, Detroit, Oklahoma City, to name a few. It all depended on where the job flows, or more particularly the cover was. Eventually I made it to a small town in Travis County, Texas, and this is where my story takes a hell of a drastic turn. I end up in some town not too far from Austin, Texas. I was starving and felt like I could eat a horse, but figured some cold cuts and vegetable would do. With no real direction, I just drive until I see one in the distance. I can see the farm not too far behind it, the owner. I pulled into the dirty parking lot to get some veggies and tomatoes as well. I also got some lunch meat, bread, and mustard. Eventually I got enough and was ready to go to the register. As I get closer to the stand, that is when I see her, the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Seeing her in her raven dark hair that went down to her shoulders, her heavenly blue eyes, watching her walk in that lovely light blue sundress as the wind blew around her lightly, and a smile that I swear made from heaven when one would see it. Hello, can I help you, honey? Is there something wrong with the product? I tried to speak, but for the first time in my life, I stammered. Of all the times, I was at a loss for words, and yet she stood there smiling at me with that ever so beautiful smile. I apologize, ma'am. It's just that I was caught off guard by, Her heavenly smile kept showing. My God, this woman is beautiful, I kept thinking to myself. Suddenly a little boy comes running from out of nowhere, and the woman picked him up after he bumped into me by accident. Michael, honey, Mama told you to watch where you're going. You can't bump into folks like they're bumper cars, okay, sweetie? I'm sorry, mister. This little daredevil has a tendency of bumping into things he is not supposed to. I laughed at her words. Hey, once upon a time we were Michael too. Or in your case. I hinted at her giving me her name. I would be Sarah. Sarah Rhodes, and who would you be, sir? Something tells me it would not be a Michael. Her warm, welcoming soul was soothing. Mine would be Jason. And allow me to say you have the most memorizing smile I have ever seen, Sarah. And it is a pleasure to meet you. Sarah's face turned red for a moment. I don't think she expected that type of a greeting from a stranger before. Her face soon returns to normal, her smile evident. Well, it's not every day I get a compliment like that. Her smile suddenly stopped by what she saw behind me. I turned to see what it was. I then saw a black Ford F-150 pickup truck with custom rims speed into the parking area recklessly. Pebbles and dirt spread around everywhere. Everyone was affected by it except me and Sarah. I wasn't, because I already knew the guy was an idiot from that alone. But looking into Sarah's eye, I could see it was something worse. 4 men stepped out of the truck. One man was a mountain standing at 6 feet 3 inches pure muscle. 2 other men of average build stood behind him. The last man got out of the driver's seat. He was about my height with a slight lean build. They all had a rugged yet upscale look. The big man was wearing cowboy boots with jeans and an open button up the show of his muscle. The other 2 were jeans, but one wore a dark blue football hat of the area's team and a black t-shirt. The other wore the same thing. He just wore a red shirt. But the driver looked and spoke about money without talking. At least that's what he wanted to show. He wore a black pair of Lucchese cowboy boots, dark blue jeans, a black button-up Versace short sleeve, and a Polaris watch on his right hand. From the look of his face, he's no older than 22. The others are 4 years older at the most. But as I watched them and see Sarah's reaction, I knew this day was not going to be as boring as I thought. They walked past me as if I weren't even there. The rich boy leader of the group approached Sarah, his smug, arrogant grin stretching across his face before he spoke. Well, how are you, Sarah, darling? Fine day we are having out here. Not as fine as you are, of course. Sarah already had enough of this guy from the look on her face. In fact, so did I. I watched the men before I acted first. See their positions, their stances, how far apart they were. Looking at any angle. Get the hell out of here, Barry. We have nothing to discuss. I already paid you what was owed. Take your sorry excuse of a fan club along with your sorry but out of here. The one named Barry pushed over a mason jar of peaches, causing it to break on the ground below. Whoops, it slipped my hand. Barry then brushes another one with his backhand, allowing it to fall. The look of anger and duress plays on Sarah's face. Now, Sarah, as much as we enjoyed helping you out of the kindness of our hearts with little Michael in your situation, which is not entirely true, I watch as potential customers begin to leave, not wanting anything to do with this. I take note of the little skinny jar of homemade spicy sauce. The Looney Tune guy with the idiot spitting fire out of his mouth but showed promise. Yes, you have paid the debt that you owed. However, you have yet to pay the interest rate, which is 30% if I'm not mistaken. Sarah was outraged as she screamed back. 30%? Where did you get that number? Barry looked toward the big man, who ended up kicking a large candy stand over. Now, Sarah, as you know, I don't like being interrupted. We paid you $300,000 for your boy's heart surgery. Not my fault the little brat was built different in the bad way. As the group laughed, I saw that Sarah had what looked like a billy club in her hand behind the register, away from their eyesight. Good, I can use that. Anyway, being that you have not made any payments for 3 months, that interest rate has gone up. You are still short 50 grand. By any chance you have that on you? You know I don't have that on me. I was wiped out, hence why I came to you. It nearly killed me paying that off. Barry smiled with an evil grin. Now do not fret about anything, honey. You see, I have an answer to your problem. We have a club in the city that just so happens to have a position open that hosts a special clientele. A dance on stage here, a lap dance there, and a demonstration of what those lips and body can do here. Barry got closer to her ear. Maybe you can let me have a test ride of that piece of art you call a body before anyone else spoil it for me, huh? Sarah didn't say a word. She tried to hit Barry with the billy club, but he caught it. He twisted her hand as she strained. Her groan of discomfort and pain made Michael worry for his mother. The boy ran to his mother to protect her, only to be snatched by one of the men. Wow, you are quite the firecracker, Sarah. Tell you what, Dale, take that little intellectually disabled person for a walk. Me and the boys going to have us a little sample of some of this lovely country pie. Dale looked displeased. Oh, come on, Barry. Why I get sloppy seconds? Sarah spit in Barry's face. Screw you. You sorry sack of shit. Barry was about to hit her but stopped. Then he turned back to Dale. Actually, Dale, keep the little intellectually disabled person here. He can share some memories with his mama. Sarah paled at that. When she saw her little boy, it broke her heart. No. Michael. Baby, close your eyes. Before Barry was about to rip open her dress, I stepped to the register from the side. Excuse me, ma'am? I stepped to the register until I was right in front of Barry. I believe I would like to purchase this item if that would be all right. Barry was enraged at the fact that someone interrupted and embarrassed him. Barry is going to feel a lot worse. Who do you think you are? Are you retarded or something? As soon as the words left his mouth, I hit Barry with the spicy sauce, the bottle shattering in the brim of his eyes, while at the same time taking the billy club from Sarah's freed hand. The look of shock and awe splashed on her face. Barry cries in pain, rubbing his eye in a desperate attempt to stop the burning pain, only causing them to hurt more. I speak loud enough for him to hear me. I'm something Barry. Nice to meet you. I give him a strong, straight kick to his chest, causing him to crash into the big man. While the big man is distracted, I take the billy club and aim at his knee. Now it's the big man's turn to cry out in pain. But before he could do anything else, I take the billy club and hold both ends of it behind his head. Then with brutal efficiency, I knee his face, causing his head to break through the club itself, knocking him out in the process. The other two near the back were speechless. One of them spoke. What the hell, Sam? This guy just took out Barry and Paul like nothing. So that four names: Barry the wannabe lover boy, Paul the muscle, Dale the one with the kid, and now Sam. I see that these are not the brightest of the group. Screw him. I got this. The one called Sam pulls out a blade. From what I can see, it was a 15-inch hunting knife that has a 9-inch blade with a micarta handle. It was something out of a Rambo movie. I gotta say, the guy has good taste in a blade. I'm going to cut you up to a good hero. You hear me, you a-hole? He's angry good. The angrier he is, the more likely he will make a mistake. Yeah, I hear you. That's the issue. You want to talk, find a shrink, or someone who cares. You idiot. I thought to myself, yep, that will do it. I told Sarah to get back, before Sam made the charge. He runs towards me but thrusts too far and too hard, but perfect for me to get out of the way and take his hand holding the blade. I put pressure on his thumb and wrists, causing him to eventually drop the blade, followed by a kick to the nut. He went down while I hold his hand. I then slammed his own knife through his hand that once held the blade. A second after he screamed in pain, I slammed his face to the sales counter. He was face down and out like a light as his teeth and a puddle of blood began to form. It was left out in the open for all to see. Dale was scared to death when he saw me turn around towards him. I took the blade from Sam's hand without effort, without taking a single eye from Dale. At this point, he was holding Michael in place, no longer carrying him. From the look of sheer terror in his eyes, I may as well be looking into his very soul. And in a sense, I was. The boy, Michael, let him go. My voice was as cold as ice when I spoke. And without hesitation, he let Michael go. Michael ran into Sarah's arm, and she hugged him as tight as she could when he was there. Michael, baby. Oh, thank God you're all right. I knelt to Sam's unconscious body and took his knife holster and put the holster knife on the counter. Ms., you mind if I keep this here for a second? She stammered a little, but shook her head no. When it looked like Dale may have had a sudden rush of bravery, I pulled out my .45 from my back holster. I had it all the time but didn't need it. Without turning around, I gave the gun to Sarah. Sarah, I think it's fair to say I can trust you, and you can trust me. I'm going to go to the car and get something. If either of these pieces of crap make a move towards you or your son, kill them. Do you understand? A look of certainty came to Sarah's face as she held the weapon in a controlled position, aiming it right at Dale. Crystal. I made my way to the trunk of my car and counted out 50 grand exactly. I then returned to a groaning Barry, who was still in the corner in pain. I then tossed the bundle of bills toward him as he looked up in both surprise and horror. That should cover her interest rate to my understanding. 50 grand, was it? Barry willed through the pain and nodded his head. Good. Not. I think it's best that you leave this family alone for now on. Otherwise, our next encounter will not be as friendly as this one. Do we understand each other, Barry? Barry cried and nodded. Good. Now get up and get your trash out of here, before I decide to forget that I told you I was being friendly. With that, Barry called Dale over to help him up and get the others moving as well. The big man, Paul, slowly came around and picked up Sam, who was still unconscious. I told Paul to wear his shirt to stop the bleeding, because he was getting blood on Sarah's floor. Eventually, the broken and beaten men left in the same truck that brought them there. I then turned to Sarah. Are you and Michael all right? She sat Michael down and she then spoke to him. Honey, I need you to run home and lock the door behind you, okay? Mama must see if the nice man is okay. Do you understand? Michael waited a moment to look at me. He then smiled and looked at his mom to nod yes. I thought about it too, but remembered that those clowns were too banged up to worry about doing anything else. And the house was less than 50 yards away, and the boy and house were both in eyesight. So it was fine. As he ran in my direction, he stopped to hug me before going to his home and made sure he was okay. When the boy was clear, she suddenly threw herself to me and hugged me as tight as she could. Allowing tears to flow, I then took her in my arms. She then spoke through her tears. That a-hole, he was going to make my boy watch. If not for you, then? She continued to sob on my shoulder before she spoke again. I never seen you before a day in my life. But thank you. Oh God, thank you. I comforted her as best as I could. It's all right, they are gone and will not bother you or your son. Not while I'm around. I noticed she tightened her grip a little when she said that. I thought to myself, why would someone want to harm this beautiful woman? It did not matter. I would make sure that she was protected and no harm would come to her ever again. I needed to lighten the mood. So, I spoke up. You know, I wish asking someone out on a date wouldn't have to be so drastic. How about you? She laughed after that. Her laughter is intoxicating, despite what she just endured. Do you like pork chops, Jason? Are you kidding? Anything that is meat is my favorite. I can bring a bottle of wine if that's all right. She smiled at me. Yes, Jason, which will be just fine. When I arrived at her house later that night, I took in the sight of it all. She had a decent-sized farm. She had a cornfield as well as one for other vegetables such as cabbage, zucchini, broccoli, among others. The soils were fresh and soft as well. I also saw she had a hen house and area for her hogs and a few cows. But then there was her home. A beautiful 3-story home that you used to see in children's books when we were kids. It had an egg-white exterior, and the field it was in was something out of a movie. Tall grass seemed to surround itself around it, and the way the night sky shined on it. The full moon's light made it seem that the sun never went down yet, allowed the stars to shine below. Then as I knocked on the door, I was greeted with an incredibly beautiful sight. She wore a fresh style of blue sundress, her raven-like hair washed, and its edges curled as the bottom. I could smell the soap and shampoo and perfume. She smelled like honey and rose. She then spoke, "Hello, Jason. Would you like to come in?" Without hesitation, I did just that. Inside her home was something so wholesome that I had not seen it for a long time. It was a clash of ears of time speaking in harmony. The soft retro-style couch from the 70s in front of a flat-screen TV. The 60s-style interior of the kitchen, with the modern commodities, such as the large refrigerator and large freezer by its side. The grandfather clock in the living room adjacent to the love seat. I looked at her and spoke. "You have a beautiful home." "Thank Jason. Now think somebody said something about bringing a drink to dinner?" I pulled out a bottle of sweet, flavored peach wine. She smiled. "Well, my hero has good taste in wine too. We are going to get along fine." I make my way to the table and see Michael when I get there, smiling at me. He then comes up and hugs me. I noticed that Sarah was crying a little bit. "Is everything all right?" I asked her. "I'm sorry, it's just that he has not shown a lot of emotion since his father died." "Oh, Sarah, I'm sorry, I didn't know." Sarah just waved. "It's all right, Jason. Like you said, you didn't know." I noticed. She did not seem bothered about that fact, but I figured I was just overthinking things. "Come on, let's eat," she said as she walked me to the family dining room. The room was extremely comfortable yet also loving and homey. Michael sat in his chair at the head of the table. "Man of the house, I see. I respect that, sir." He gave me the sweetest and innocent smile. I saw Sarah smile as well in the corner of my eye. She made an amazing spread. Fired pork chops and gravy, mashed potatoes and butter, Brussels sprouts, and a chef salad with blueberry mixed cornbread from scratch, with heavy butter. I haven't even began eating yet, and I think I will be coming by more often. She smiled and said, "Well, that was kind of the point." We both laughed a little before she spoke again. "Tell me, Jason, do you often save damsels in distress at farmers markets or veggie stands?" Again, we both laughed. "No, I can't say that it is a habit that I'm familiar with. But to be fair, I was there for some tomatoes." "Tomatoes? Let me see if I understand you correctly." She then looked at her son first. "Honey, I need you to cover your ears for mommy, okay?" Michael did that before she started speaking again. My son and my lives were saved from some scum suckers that wanted to assault me in front of him. Because of tomatoes? I looked taken aback. Well, that, and the fact I wanted to make a sandwich. And the whole me not liking a woman be assaulted in front of her child thing. I think Barry and his crew will be a bit more hesitant on trying again though. Although Sam may have to deal with it a bit harder. Because unless he is a lefty, it's going to be a tad more frustrating for him. Not that I'm complaining. Sarah lets out a laugh of the comment and looks at her son, signaling to open his ears. For the next hour, we talked about each other's past. I had to be careful with what I shared for obvious reasons, but I did tell the truth of what I experienced. I told her about my parents and how they met and how they died. I did not tell her their names. I told her how I served in the military and some of the conflicts I seen. But I did not tell her specific missions that she could link me to. But I didn't want to hear about my broken violin stories I know. I wanted to know more about her. So, I went on about my life a bit. How about you tell me a bit about yourself? She paused for a moment, and then looked at her son and saw him dozing off. Oh, looks like someone is a bit tired. She went to her son to pick him up for bed. Time for bed, little man. You had a long day. Little Michael tried to fight off his fatigue, but it was to no avail. I then noticed he looked towards me with his hands out. Someone wants a hug for the guest. Mind if I help you bring him to bed? She paused, pleasantly surprised. What was more surprising is when she allowed me to carry him to bed with her at my side. It was strange. I just met this family today, and yet I'm already building a bond. I knew the day was more than crazy for all of us, but it was like a sense of camaraderie and bond we all shared. When I placed Michael in his bed and watched as he peacefully went to sleep with his mother by his side, I knew I would never leave them, that I would protect them with every fiber of my being. Care to join me out front? I think I can share a bit more now. With a nod and a smile, I followed her outside. We walked out on the front porch. The night sky was beautiful. The stars shined as if they were diamonds in the night sky. I lived here all my life, born and raised here. In fact, born in this very home. Mama used to say that I was stubborn and headstrong from the day when I was born, because I could not even wait to pop out until I was at the hospital. I did it in our living room instead. I wasn't your typical girl. I wasn't just a girl either. I like to think I was somewhere in between. My parents were simple people. Mom loved and raised me as a stay-at-home mom. Any mother would. My dad was always busy working, supporting, and providing for us. He was a jack of all trades. You name it, he could fix it. He was like MacGyver in real life. I saw that man make a charcoal grill out of an oil drum. My daddy could do anything. They had their faults as we all do, but there was never a time they didn't make me smile. We cherished every moment we had together. And they loved me so much, and I loved them. I felt the words of how she described her parent. It was similar how I loved mine. From how she spoke of them, I knew they were no longer with her. They died in a tornado last year. Dad tried to get to Mom, who tried to beat the tornado home by driving the truck. Mom was stuck. So Dad went to save her after making sure that me and Michael was safe in the cellar. He got her out, but before they could make it in time, it got them. Swallowed them up like they were as light as pillows. We ended up finding them miles away a few days later. God missed them so much. I held her as she shed tears. I'm sorry, you are never over losing your parents, you know? Yeah, I do. It's funny, our parents are like superheroes when we are kids, and yet that feeling never really goes away when we are older. I felt her tighten her grip on me. So how did you end up with this little piece of heaven? I asked her. She smiled as she raised her head back up, wiping away her tears. The farm has been in our family since the 1940s. My great-granddaddy got it after World War II, and after being a bounty hunter, which was still profitable at that time. Of course, the occasional bandit and rival rancher was an issue, but he made do for kin. He met my mom in the same military hospital that treated his wounds. It was something called the Nightingale effect, when wounded soldiers fell in love with the nurses who treated them, or vice versa. Of course, Daddy used to tell me that his grandma just said strawberry jam. She laughed and I looked confused. Great-grandpa had a sweet tooth. So, whenever she had lunch, one of her favorites was strawberry jam sandwiches. And great-granddad would always sweet-talk her into sharing a piece. At first, he just wanted something that the hospital wouldn't give him. But eventually some of that sweet-talking began to have merit. Eventually they ended up falling in love, despite the horror that war brought. There was even a time they saved each other's lives on occasion when enemy units were nearby. In time they conceived my grandpa, and the rest is history. I smiled at the story of her family farm history. Not a lot was known about her family prior to her grandfather, just that he was an orphan. I thought about what I was going to say, then just asked. About Michael. She smiles before responding. I do look a bit young to be a mom, huh? Well, that is because I was young when I had him. His father and I met in high school. He was the town hero all-American jock, and I was the county girl that fell for him. We all heard the birds and the bees conversation, but like most kids we didn't care. Our parents were so mad when we told them I was pregnant, but I loved my baby, and I was determined to bring him in this world and raise him. With my father's blessing, we married soon after. We both finished school, and through it I made sure that boy was loved and cared for. I noticed you didn't mention your husband that much. She paused a moment. That is a story for another day. I looked at her face in the moonlight. It was like an angel came from heaven to bless me with her presence. She caught me staring at her and blushed as she gave a small laugh. What? She asked playfully. I could not lie to her. You are just so beautiful. She smiled at me. Well, when is the handsome gentleman going to kiss me since he claims I'm so beautiful? She didn't have to say another word. I slowly brought my lips to her. Our kiss was enthusiastic and sensual. She broke it off for a moment. As she gazed into my eye, it was as if they were yearning for me, as mine were yearning for her. Jason, stay with me tonight. I know we just met, but with how the day went, I just feel safe when I'm around you, and I don't want you to leave me. So, I ask that you stay with me tonight. I gave her an enthusiastic kiss, then answered, I'm not going anywhere, beautiful. With that, she walked me back into her home, and we made our way upstairs to her room, where we made love for the rest of the night. The following morning, I woke up in what seemed like the best sleep I had had in years. I turned around to see my beautiful host still asleep in her nightgown. Even with her hair disheveled, she looked like an angel. Morning, sleepyhead. A light groan came from her. Good morning, handsome. Let me apologize in advance for the morning breath you are about to receive. She joked as she gave me a sleepy kiss. I just looked at her and smiled. You know I was going to move on when I got my tomatoes, but maybe I'll stick around for a bit. Sarah smiled back. You are staying for the tomatoes? Seriously? I smiled back. Well, they are pretty good tomatoes. We laughed some more before kissing again. We were about to make a repeat of last night when we heard a car pull up on the driveway. Sarah told me that no one lived here except for her and her son. We both immediately got dressed. I put on my pants and a t-shirt, my .45 caliber pistol in my holster. She put on a pair of jeans and a sweatshirt, taking hold of a Mossberg shot, but she pulled from her closet. I took hold of her and spoke. Go to Michael's room and lock the door. I want to make sure you both are safe when I make it outside. I'm going to make sure the door is locked. A worried expression came to her face. Jason, you and I both know it could be those scum suckers from yesterday. More the reason I want you both safe. I'll be all right, I promise, okay? I gave her a reassuring kiss before she could respond. Fine, but you better be all right after this. I watched as I saw her take the shotgun to Michael's room and locked the door. I had to admit, that was sexy as hell seeing her go into protective mode. When I knew that she and Michael was safe, I made my way downstairs to the front door, ready to protect and, if need be, kill whatever wanted to harm my world. Outside, I was greeted by a familiar black Ford truck. An angry Barry was looking at me, his eyes bright red as well as the area around it. I also saw an older man wearing an expensive blazer and the same boots as Barry wore. I also noted the man behind him. His sunglasses and business suit told me that was his muscle. Then the man spoke. Good morning, sir. I was expecting to bump into Ms. Rhodes this morning. However, it is a pleasure to meet you. I understand that you met my nephew Barry yesterday? I looked at my handiwork and smiled. You could say that. We had a bit of a misunderstanding. He felt it was okay to assault a woman in front of her child, and that just didn't sit right with me. Barry, how's your friend Sam? Is he learning how to wipe his, but with his left hand? Okay, all things considered. Barry grew enraged. You scum sucker. You think you're funny, you piece of crap. I'll blow that smile off your smug face, you sack of. Barry, the older man shouted, causing Barry to stand down. I only smile, all while looking at the older man and the one behind him. They were the real threat from the vibe they gave. I apologize for my nephew. He tends to be brash at times. I looked at him and spoke. You don't say, and all this time I thought he was simply being a moron. Barry grimaced but said nothing. I'm sorry, young man. I do not believe we have been introduced. My name is Maxwell Stevens. I'm what you may call a business opportunist, if you will. I see opportunity and I take it. Now, to my understanding, you paid off Ms. Rhodes' debt completely. Admirable, yet I wonder why you would do that. I didn't answer. I just let him talk. I didn't want to give anything away to him. His mannerism shows he has more than he is letting on. I must know more about him before I can act. Unlike his nephew, he is not stupid. Not in the mood to talk, I see, no matter. You have sent some of my men to the hospital, Mr. Jason Wynn. I didn't flinch when he mentioned my name. I also gave a fundamental thank you to Simon for the new identity that clearly worked. Whoever got him the information gave him the information that I want people to see when they look me up. I'll be blunt. I want you to work for me. I saw Barry sneer at that comment. Can't lie, I wanted to chuckle at that. You see, I could use someone with your talents. You would be an asset. I believe you could go far in this field. You can have all the money possible. And Sarah? I slightly tighten my fist when he mentions her name. You can have all the Sarahs you want, my boy. Or Nina, or Becca, Maria, or whoever you want. Just say the words, and your positions is granted. I could feel Sarah watching me, or at least having her shotgun ready to blow someone's brains out if they hurt me. I could tear this guy a new one with insults, but Sarah and Michael are here. Got to be direct but smart. So, Mr. Wynn, what is your answer? I looked at him and smiled. I'm going to have to decline your offer, Mr. Stevens. You see, I'm currently employed by Ms. Rhodes as her assistant. The farm needs work, and folks at the farmer's market can be a tad aggressive. I'm sure you understand. It was the first time I seen Max not smile. His face is cold and stone-like. I could tell he didn't like that answer, and he could tell I could give a damn about what he liked or not. I admit, I'm disappointed by that answer, Mr. Wynn. I suppose it is time to take further actions then. Have a good day. We will most certainly be in touch. I watch as they go into their vehicles. Barry flips me the bird. I blow a cynical kiss in return and smile. Yeah, I'll be seeing you, Barry. Be seeing you soon. When the cars left, Sarah came rushing outside to me, holding me in her arms. Oh my God, I was so scared. I thought that. I could not help but smile. What? That you were going to have to use that shotgun? Sarah had a determined look in her eyes. And I would have shot them dead too. I'm sorry about this, Jason. I cupped her face. You have nothing to be sorry about, beauty. Just know whatever you face, we are facing it now. She pulled my face down to hers and kissed me. Okay then, together it is. Please don't take me as someone who does this often. I feel like we are moving as fast as a lightning bolt in summer. But I can't help myself around you. Whatever this is becoming, just promise me you won't hurt me. You have my word, beautiful, she smiled after I told her. So, you work for me now, huh? I smiled back. Yes, ma'am, you'll have me. I have more skills than you think. She smiled at me. So, you can do more than what you did last night? I smiled back. Like I said, I have more skills than you think, my devious smile matching hers. Jokes aside, I would like to work for you, Sarah. I think we both can benefit from that. I can help with field work, as well as livestock, and can even help with harvest for farm market. All I ask is food and board. She wrapped her hand around my waist, looking at me with those heavenly eyes. Is that all you need? My God, what is this woman doing to me? I think to myself before answering. Anything involving you is a bonus, I'll gladly accept, beautiful. And with a sensual kiss we made a deal. For the next 4 months, I was a live-in employee. I would help with the work on the farms, such as harvesting crops and repairs. I caught Sarah off guard with how well I tuned out on the farm because of how good my work was. I also bonded with Michael. For someone who was always seen as shy or reclusive, he became my little friend. I taught him how to fix trucks and tractor. I even bought one as well as other equipment to help work the land. The times when he would operate the tractor with me were our time, our moment. I would also like to play sports like football and baseball, but wrestling was our favorite. One time on his birthday, Sarah and I had a surprise for him. I bought a resting outfit for him and left a note on his bed saying, "Put this on and meet us outside." He was dressed like his favorite wrestler. Black tight pants with light blue streaks with black top and instructions for war paint. When he came out, Sarah was dressed in a suit like the announcers on TV. Now coming down the stairs standing at 4 feet, weighing 85 pounds, the Night Angel Michael. And on this corner standing at 5 feet 9 inches, weighing 176 pounds, Jason the Mauler. My outfit was a green jumpsuit with Jason Voorhees war paint on my face. Not going to lie, I was a bit of a ham. We wrestled like they did on TV, and I let him beat me up for the next 10 minutes. Kid has a lot of energy. Although I did give him a few body slams, he loved it. There was something magical about seeing him smile. I ended it by having him jump off the turnbuckle and onto me. Sarah became the ref and counted to 3. To this day, I don't think you could erase the smile he had on that day. And he, as well as me and Sarah, enjoyed it so much. I wondered if Dad felt like that when me and him shared our moments together. I also helped with the farmer's market sale. I noticed some of the female customers were eyeing me a bit. Sarah would make fun of the situations on occasion. Sarah once said, "You little 304, with a sarcastic grin. How dare you, madam, label me in such vile words?" We both would get a laugh about it all that day. When we were done for the day, I decided to take her picture. At first, she was shocked, but eventually let me take it. The way she smiled that day in that dress would forever be thankfully stitched up in my memory. Her beauty would put models to shame. But we also both fell for each other. There wasn't a moment or day we didn't think about the other. A day we didn't make love. It felt like a dream, all of it. And like all dreams, I never wanted it to end. About a month later, everything changed. It was a beautiful fall day, a few weeks from Halloween. We decided to go to the State's Fair. Michael was ecstatic. He could barely contain his joy. He ran from ride to ride, and we were there through them all. I noticed Sarah was crying. "What's wrong, hun? Are you all right?" She answered by kissing me. "Jason, ever since you have come here, Michael has been happy and so full of joy. Before that he was anything but." Then I noticed a pause. "Jason, I have to tell you some." Before she could finish, she was interrupted by an older woman named Brenda Connors. "Sarah, hello, how are you, my dear? It has been ages." Sarah was caught off guard but recovered. "I'm fine, Brenda, thank you." "Brenda, I'd like to introduce you to someone. This is my boyfriend, Jason." I put my hand out. "It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am." Brenda looked at me like I was a snack. "Oh, my dear, you are a blessed woman to have yourself such a fine specimen." Sarah saw that Michael was moving like he had to go to the bathroom. Oh, somebody got to go?" Michael nodded. "Okay, baby. Brenda, we are going to have to catch up another time. I got to take care of little man right here. Baby, mind talking for a bit till I get back? I promise she don't bite." She gave me that smile. No way I could say no. "I'll be here when you get back, beautiful." I gave her a kiss as she made her way to the restroom. Brenda took a breath before she continued. "It's so long and overdue to see those two smile again. I mean, after her and Michael losing Franklin a year ago." My stomach turned in knots from the name. "I'm sorry, Ms. Did you say Franklin?" Brenda seemed puzzled but answered. "Well, yes, Franklin Jefferson. Terrible story. Some madman shot him and a scorned lover in bed together a year ago. The whole town was devastated. That man was a saint in this town. He coached the Little League football teams, was a guidance counselor for troubled youth. He was even a volunteer fireman. He even helped homeless veterans get work as well as feed the homeless. He saved my life once. I was choking on something, and I even blacked out, but he did the Heimlich maneuver and here I am. In fact, a lot of people in this town owe him in more ways than one. A lot of us wouldn't be around if not for Franklin, and he so loved his family. They were the American dream in real life. Everyone wanted a life just to be like them. They were our neighborhood celebrities. He didn't deserve to die like a dog like that. I know what he did was wrong, but to be killed in such a barbaric way. And Sarah, she was so devastated. Thank God you're here for her, Jason. I have not seen her or that beautiful child smile in so long. Well, I'm off. Take care, and tell Sarah I'll see her at the next market sale." I went from being on cloud nine to the underworld in a second. It all dawned on me from that woman's statement. The woman I loved, along with her son who I swore to protect. I took away someone dear to them because I was too angry, too emotional. I took something precious from her, while after all this time made love to her. It's bad enough I killed him, but have sex with her after what I did to her? What is wrong with me? I asked myself. Tears begin to fall. No matter how much I don't want to, I will have to leave. But I can't just disappear. I must tell her and Michael. They don't deserve to be abandoned. I'll leave a decent amount before I go. As I'm contemplating my next move, I feel someone's hand on my shoulder. Startled, I turned around and saw her and Michael. "Hey, are you all right, baby?" There it is, that beautiful, concerned smile. I don't deserve this, as much as I don't want to. And oh God, I don't want to. I'm going to have to leave them. She sees the look in my eyes, and she can tell something is wrong. "Hey baby, Michael is tired. How about we call it a night? And you can tell me what's on your mind?" I gave her a sad smile. Fighting the tears back, I answered. "Yeah, I think we need to talk." The drive home was quiet. I could feel her eyes on me. She was wondering what was wrong, and how she could help. God bless her. But I couldn't tell her. Not until we make it home. When we got home, I offered to take Michael upstairs. For I knew it would be the last time. Seeing him peacefully in his bed, knowing it would be the last time, broke my heart. "I'm sorry, Michael." I did not hear her at the door. "Jason, why are you sorry, baby? What's wrong?" I looked at her, fresh tears falling from my eyes. "Sarah, we need to talk." I sat next to her on the couch and took a breath before I spoke. "Before anything else, please know that I love you. I love you and Michael more than anything in the world. These past months were like heaven after waking up from a nightmare, and I am eternally grateful for all you have given me. Sarah, my name is not Jason Wynn, it is Al Simmons. I found your husband in bed with my wife Valerie, and I killed them both. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I have decided to turn myself in. I can leave right now and go to the police station. But if you want to say something, or hate me, or even kill me, I understand. I have taken someone close to you, and I'm not worthy of the gift that is your love. I hope that one day you can forgive me for what I have done to your family. I ask that one day that you and Michael can forgive me, but I understand if you cannot. If there is anything you want to say, please say it. She does not say anything. She slaps me as hard as she can, but not for the reason I thought. Suddenly she hugs me for all she is worth. You a-hole. You think you can make me fall in love with you, and I just let you leave me? I was shocked and confused. I just told her I killed her husband after finding him in bed with my wife. Sarah, did you not hear what I said? I killed Franklin. Suddenly she got in my face and yelled, God, because I don't care. In face, I hope to God it hurt. I was stunned by what I heard. Al, I know who you are. I have always known. It's time I had my turn to talk. I sat there stunned. How? Through her tears, she still manages to smile. Al, I have explored every inch of your body, including your face. Think it's fair to say that any decent girlfriend would recognize her man if she saw him on TV, with or without a beard. I then addressed the elephant in the room. Why do you not care that I killed your husband? She looked at me with a determined expression. Because that creep is anything but the saint this town makes him out to be. Remember when I told you I had Michael Young? I was in high school, and I was nothing more than a trophy girlfriend. I was the arm candy when he needed to go to prom, but he would beat me on a regular basis. I stayed because I thought he loved me. I thought he cared for me, and he was just fighting his demons. While I was pregnant with the baby. When Michael was born, we both got permission from our parents to be legally married. I thought the abuse would stop then. It only got worse. He would punch me, throw me downstairs for any reason. When I threatened to leave he would always put on an act of sincerity and apologize, and like an idiot I would believe it, because I so wanted us to be a loving family. The problem was that was impossible because he was incapable to love. I held her in my arms as she cried. She then gathered herself and continued. The worst was last year. In fact, a month before you killed him. I had just finished dinner. I found out that I was going to be a mother again. I was 3 weeks pregnant. I was so happy. I always wanted a big family. When he came home, I wanted to tell him the good news, but he was drunk. I tried telling him, but he just brushed it off. I was hurt and devastated. I went to bed that night. Suddenly I felt someone grab me by my legs and spread them. I fought back, but he stuck me again and again. I screamed and fought, but he just slapped me. The lamplight somehow got turned on, and when I saw it was his face above me. He assaulted me in our own marital bed. I felt anger rise in me when she told me that. He was brutal. He did things to me that, oh my God, I didn't know someone would be so cruel. When he was done, I saw blood everywhere. I panicked and begged him to take me to the doctor to save our baby. He just slapped me and told me to shut up. I was in my nightgown bloodied and sitting on the floor at this point. He was going to hit me again, but Michael hit him with his yellow bat. I can still hear my baby's voice. Get away from my mommy. Sarah sobbed again, needing a break before she could continue. Al, the sick man grabbed him by his little neck, choking him. He was laughing at it all. I still hear him mock Michael. Sarah spoke the words he said. You think you can take on the old man, you little runt? He then punched him in the ribs while he was holding him up in the air. I fought that a-hole with a renewed strength and jumped on his back, biting and clawing his eyes, whatever I could to save my boy. Let go of my son, you maggot. That is what I screamed as I saw Michael begin to black out. My baby. His eyes were beginning to roll to the back of his head. Sarah started to cry again as the image of her being treated so cruelly played in her head. That sadistic a-hole then smiled through it all and said, anything you say, and tossed Michael like he was garbage. He threw him so hard that he left a hole in the room. I think back to the moment that I shot him when he was with my wife. How cruel I was, shooting him in the gut, letting the pain of the bullet burn his insides, letting him know he was going to die. I still heard him begging for his life before I emptied the entire mag into him. Then how guilty I felt about how much of a good man he was, how he was such a pillar for the community. But after hearing this, I realized that he got off light compared to what I would do to him after finding out how much he terrorized his own family. What kind of a man would do that? No, he wasn't a man. He was less than that. Sarah continued. I tried to fight him again, but it only resulted in him punching my stomach as hard as he could. If my unborn baby wasn't dead before, it certainly was then. He then walked towards me, a bloody mess on our bedroom floor, and said, if you ever think about saying a word about what happened tonight, I will kill the little spawn right in front of you, and I'll make sure it is as slow and painful as possible. and I'll make you watch the whole thing. You understand me? Al, I had no idea who this thing in front of me was, because I could no longer see him as human at this point. He took us both to the hospital. He told me to say that we fell down the stairs and people would believe it, and he wasn't wrong. When the doctor saw me, I was there for a few days for observation. On the second day, he told me I lost the baby. But then he told me that there was so much damage that I could never have children again. He also told me that the fall down the stairs damaged Michael's heart from the bruising it received, and the amount of damage to his vocal cords. He may never talk again. Sarah broke down in tears again. I let her cry as much as she needed before she continued. I had to go to Max for the money. You know the rest of that story. I couldn't say anything, nothing at all, because no one would believe me. He had done so much from the town they would believe he would walk on water if he told them he could. That's why I stay here on the farm. I don't hate them, but it feels like I look at puppets when I look at them. Puppets that believe anything they are told because some prophet puts their groceries away for them sometimes. I was a prisoner in my own ancestral home, Al. The place where I'm supposed to feel free. Al, I hated my life. The only reason I didn't end it was because of Michael. I could only hold her. Al, when word got around that he died, the town was devastated. But I smiled for the first time. God forgive me, I did. Because I never thought I could wish death on someone so much until him. She cried again, but then looked at me with those beautiful eyes despite the tears coming from them. Al, I know you may feel like you don't deserve the love of me and Michael, but you do. I love you, Al Simmons. With every fiber of my being, I love you. I know you're scared, baby, but don't think for a moment I hate you for killing that monster that was once my husband. I know you said you must turn yourself in, even though God knows I don't want you to, but I know you're setting an example for Michael. Just know that you are nothing like that piece of carp that share his genes. You made the boy love and feel again. I and that boy see you as the father he deserves. I love you, Al Simmons. You hear me? I respond by kissing her. I love you too, Sarah Rhodes. We made love again for what we thought would be the last time. Around 3 a.m., I heard something. I woke Sarah up and told her to get dressed and stay here. I'm going to get to Michael. As I head out, I see Barry in the hallway with a shotgun, and Sam and Paul are with him. I don't give them any chance and took my shots. I took out Sam and Paul instantly. Then I saw Barry, with the shotgun taking aim at me, but I was faster than him. It ended with a bullet to his brain before he could pull the trigger. I went to Michael's room and I don't see him at first, but then I heard something in the closet. I found him inside hiding. Michael, it's okay, buddy. It's me. Come on, we gotta get your mom. I reunited with him in the bedroom and secured the door. I got dressed and retrieved my other weapons. I told them to lock the door and stay inside till I come back. The door to Sarah's room is made of a strong oak wood, and the windows are bulletproof. I had them installed since the incident at the market. No one was getting inside. Once the upper area was clear, I made my way downstairs. I see a shadow on the left side of the steps. I shot at the left lower wall and saw the body drop. I then went back to Michael's room and looked out of the window and saw no one there and made my way down. Once outside, I slowly made my way to the front and saw a squad of men with guns aiming at my staircase inside. I reward them for their creativity by flanking them and taking them out with automatic fire. Someone didn't tell them about slicing the pie. 7 men paid for that mistake with their lives before anyone realized what happened. Another group tried to rush me with their van. I took aim at the driver's seat and fired, causing him to die instantly and steer off from the path, crashing into the tractor, wrecking the van. I saw the van leaking gas. I did not waste that opportunity and threw a lit match on it and watched the van go up in flames. No one made it out of the van. More men came out and more men died. Then, I found myself out of ammo. A lone man walked out the chaos. He is wearing a long black sleeve shirt and tactical pants and boots. It was the same one from that day. I gotta say I'm impressed. It takes a lot to do that. I respond, you should see the rest of my resume. I even work on weekends. The man laughed. You know, you seem like a decent guy. It's going to be a shame to kill you. I responded, you don't seem too bad yourself, you know, despite the whole bad guy vibe you got. I'd hate to die. He suddenly pulls out a throwing knife. I barely miss it as it crosses my face. Just then, he suddenly came to me. I see the glint of a 12-inch knife with a 9-inch blade with custom serrations on it. I pulled out the one I took from Sam a while ago, blocking the slash and kicking Mr. Bad Guy in the sternum, forcing to back away and recover. He coughs a bit, then gives me an evil smile that I swear he took from the devil himself. You know, I'm pleased to see that Sam's knife finally has a worthy wielder. That move you countered cut off many heads. I respond with my own emotionless stare. Don't worry, You and Sam can talk all about it in a bit." He then got up and went to his leg and ran slicing upwards. I dodged and countered and saw the blade when it hit mine. I recognized his style. It was Arnie's, a Philippine-style knife martial art, among the deadliest. And his skill demonstrates that the more I fight him, more the chances of him winning. One wrong move and it's over. Most people would be dead by now. But most weren't trained by Vinny, who taught me that, as well as others including Malaysian Silat, System of Spetsnaz, Arnie's, knife fighting, and his own custom knife fighting style. I saw my opportunity when he was about to strike downward while holding his blade too high. A mistake that was caused by frustration. Vinny once told me that knife fighting is chess in a blade. You can't rush your move, you must plan, watch, act, then succeed. All while making sure you aren't a pincushion. You know you have won when the one who want to kill you is dead and not you. I quickly jabbed my knife right into his now vulnerable rib cage, puncturing his lung. I then slipped behind him and began slicing backward around his body, eventually severing his spinal cord. Then cut his throat for good measure. It was all so fast. His body was still standing for a moment. He looked at me as the blood came out of his mouth and smiled. Nice. The blood from his neck then poured out, and his body dropped dead on the spot, and then I went to see my family. I knocked on the door and announced myself. When the door opened, both Sarah and Michael both hugged me as tight as they could, and I did the same. I could hear the siren in the distance. It was a war here. So, I can't say I'm surprised. We just held each other in tears, thanking God that everyone was safe. Before the cops arrived, I gave Sarah Simon's number to tell him what happened, then to destroy the burner phone when she is done with the call. She will be taken care of. When the police came, they were shocked by the carnage. They were terrified when they discovered I was responsible for it. I told them who I was. I also told them that Sarah was completely innocent. Special Agent Murphy came down to Texas to retrieve me himself and take me back to Pennsylvania. The feds wanted to throw the book at me. However, one of their higher-ups and my lawyer provided by Simon came in. My lawyer explained that my actions at the house, despite being brutal, were an act of self-defense. The body there had rap sheets that ranged from trafficking to murder. It also turns out that the guy I plugged, Franklin, was worse than what was let on. Him and Valerie would pick up and trick girls into the sex trade. Valerie would act like a talent agent when she picked her target. She would usually go to high schools, universities, or even random areas such as coffee shops and bars. She would use her charming personality and build their trust, or flat out flirt with women who were bi or lesbian. Then she would convince them to meet her at a motel or an abandoned apartment. Once there, that would be when Franklin would assault then bound them. Sometimes others would assist in the assault, and Valerie would record the whole thing for documentation for potential clients. Most times the assault didn't last long, 5 to 10 minutes. But sometime the women would fight back, and as punishment, the assault would last for 30 minutes to an hour until the women were broken and comply. In rare occasion, Valerie would join in the assault herself. Once the assault was done, others would pick the women up, never to be seen again. I was sickened by this. To think the woman I once loved with all my heart was such a monster. I then thought she got off easy too from what I did to her. However, the mission when I was in the military threw the organization out of whack. And as a result, the girls that Valerie and Frank kidnapped were now free and at home. They decided to drop the double homicide charges, but I still had to serve at least 7 years for evading. Before they took me away, the supervisor spoke. "We have someone who want to meet you." My lawyer merely nodded at me, assuring that this is fine, and he will be outside. A woman in a suit then came in. She was in her early 20s, a few years younger than me. She then spoke. "It's good to see you again." I looked at her confused. "You don't recognize me. I guess it's a bit hard when you're not covered in your attempted assault or blood wearing camis." That and my hair was completely shaved. Suddenly I recognized her. "You?" "Agent Tammy Harlan, aka CPL Tammy Harlan of the United States Marine Corps. I just want to say thank you for letting me see my kids again, sir. I made my little girl's birthday because of you." With that, she gave me a hug and a salt, then left the room. At the hearing, I plead guilty. I saw all my loved ones. Vinny, Bridget, Simon, and of course my family, Sarah and Michael. I had a chance to tell her not to wait for me, that this is my bullet to bite. She responding by kissing me. "I want to go to Jamaica for our honeymoon. I'm waiting for you, my love. We both are." They ended up sending me to a federal prison in the Northeast, but Simon and my funds the feds let me keep helped Sarah and Michael to visit. I also heard that Maxwell Stevens didn't like the fact I killed his nephew and his friends and wanted to finish Sarah and Michael off for revenge. But I also heard that Simon and a particular couple from Indiana didn't like the idea of my family being threatened. Anything involving Maxwell was either gone or taken over by other parties. As far as Maxwell, he was taken to Simon's special clinic, never to be seen again. So, here I am. The guard tells me it's time as I gather my belongings. Father Mac pat me on the shoulder and told me how proud he was. He's a nice guy. Got some good stories himself. He was also a Marine. The guard was a straight shooter. Firm but fair. They escorted me out of prison, wishing me good luck. It's been a long, hard 7 years without holding my love in my arms and spending time with my boy. As I was at the processing center, I met with the beautiful side of my family. Bridget and Vinny, my brother Simon, and my beautiful family Sarah and Michael. I ran to my family, embracing them in my arms. The wedding was a month later. I fit the bill with no worries due to Simon keeping an eye on my funds, while taking care of Sarah and Michael while I was gone. My woman was beautiful in her dress. We had the wedding on her farm, which would be our home. Michael, who was now 12, gave her away. Simon was the best man, Vinny a groomsman, and Bridget was the maid of honor. The wedding was not extravagant, but so beautiful. Simon got Michael some more treatment to repair his vocal cords. He will be speaking in no time. Sarah and I still sell fruits and veggies at the farmer's market. And Bridget and Vinny spoil their grandson Michael Rotten, who loves his uncle Simon. I don't know what the future holds, but what I do know is that will involve my family. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.